James Cameron's long-awaited sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water, has finally hit theaters, and that shit's hard as fuck. All right, let me tell you something. This movie, if you're sleeping on it, if you have any doubt in your fucking mind, go see the movie. See it in 3D, it's fine. See it out not in 3D. I don't care. I'm just going to tell you right now. He did it again. It is a good movie. I think it's better than Avatar 1. Will it make $2 billion? I don't know. Does it deserve $2 billion? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Please.
Stories like this need to be told. No Pocahontas Dancing with Wolves ripoff this time. Tell me what movie this is based off. You can't. Because James Cameron said, fuck all that. I'm making my own story. I got this. You can see the seeds being planted in 6 more movies down the road. But it feels like a genuine sequel to the first one while still setting up everything for the next one. Jake Sully. What a god tier man. I love his character. A little bit on the back burner. I thought it was going to be the Jake Sully movie. It's actually a movie with family. They really lean into the kids on this movie, and I wasn't expecting that. Stephen Lane coming back as the Colonel, but in an Avatar body, is one of the hardest decisions I have ever seen a person or a studio allow to happen. When I tell you he's on some Thanos type shit, some
Bro.
like, it's time.
Captain Colonizer. That's him. The one and only.
Captain Colonizer is out here. He's really on a different type of time. Fuck the minerals from the first movie. We don't even care about the minerals. We are just on Jake Sully's head this entire movie. There's 2 MVPs though. Natiri and John Wick, like right here.
Word.
If John Wick had a bow, it would be Natiri and the whale. That whale, without the whale, this movie does not happen. I'll die on that hill. MVP of the movie is the whale. Forget his name. And I'm sorry about that because there's just so many characters. They introduced probably 20 characters in this movie. Like there is a lot going on in this movie. The 3-hour and 10-minute runtime warranted. It didn't feel that long. It breezed by when I watched it. I wanted more. I thought we were going to get another 30 minutes of just craziness. But the movie's so good. It starts off with a little bit of exposition, and then you get right into the story, and it is nonstop the entire way. I love this movie.
If I could describe this movie in one sentence, I would say worth the wait. When you look at the first Avatar, it captured a lot of like what was possible for movies going forward. But when I thought of like the sequel, it was just so long ago that I almost started to believe it like wasn't going to happen. I'm pretty sure everybody thought at a certain stage that it wasn't going to happen. And even more so, a certain kind of fear that it wouldn't be that great after spending years and years and years developing it. It seems like James Cameron is pretty content to kind of hanging his hat on this being his legacy in film when it's all said and done, or the biggest part of it. I think it's worth it. This movie does such a good job of like giving you that sense of transport that I think we all love movies for. There's a certain kind of enjoyment for like gritty down to earth movies that we all like. We all like those things. But in terms of being taken on a journey and taken to a different place, it's been a very long time since I've seen a movie that does that quite as well as Avatar 2. It just feels like everything about it, it was a necessary sequel. That's what I'll say. I think sequels can sometimes feel like a cash grab, even if you plan on making it. You know, even if when you write the first film, you want to make it a franchise. There's a certain level of commercialism in that where we kind of feel like we're just kind of being taken for a ride here, but in a negative way. This feels like a total story being told. I got to have all of it. You have to see it in theaters. Please, God, do not wait. Please, I'm asking you, begging, do not wait to see this on fucking Disney Plus whenever it drops. I hope they never drop that shit. I hope it takes like a fucking year to drop on Disney Plus. This is like a real spectacle, but in the best way possible. I didn't think there would be too many things that would beat out Everything Everywhere All at Once for like my favorite movie of 2022. This is definitely posing like a real argument. Like it is that good to me.
I agree. I think the second one is better than the first one. The issues that I have, I won't even say they're issues. The reasons that I would say it's better in this one is this whole movie is pretty much blue. Everything's blue. Like there's moments in the first one where you get Jake back in his human bodies and he's in the wheelchair. They're making the little video recordings and stuff. And it's like those are kind of almost the slow parts, even though they're so small. But this entire movie is blue people. And then they migrate to other blue people. And in between the migration and getting over there and seeing like the cultures are the same, but they're a little different. And even like the Na'vi on that side they've even evolved a little different to be in the water. You can see that James Cameron is planting the seeds, how you were saying earlier, like he's really putting time into making an entire like franchise to where it's not just cash grab. Like you can see the world of Pandora. You can see the different lands and the different people, and you can tell that he's really putting his time into making this diverse world.
Jake is about that time in this movie. I know we've said it before, but when Jake and Neytiri get their mindset on something, there's two standout scenes with Jake and Neytiri just fucking everybody up,
marking shit out, sending people back to like Thurston, like
Yes.
squad wipe.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Captain Colonizer's. I'm trying to figure out how to put it. Like he's very tough. Yes, very tough. He will run the smoke with anybody, but when the Neytiri show up, man's is
Bro,
shook.
hush,
Every
hush
time
mode.
every time an arrow hit, and I feel like low key, she knows that she's in his head like that, so she hits the people around him. Because there was plenty of times she could have just domed him. Plenty of times where she could have got him, but she's like doing like a scare tactic and just dropping everybody around him.
I think for Jake, the him and Captain Colonizer, their beef is personal, but I think for Neytiri, it's personal on a different level, where Neytiri views him as the person who came and ruined her entire way of life for a significant amount of time, took all the people she loved, took the animals in Pandora, which we all know they have a deep affinity for and deep emotional connection to. Like, he essentially single-handedly procured so much loss on her that for her, it's not about, with Jake, I think it's conflict avoidance. And I think that's his position as leader, is like making the decisions that's best for his people. And if we can avoid fighting with Captain Colonizer, great. If I got to yoke Captain Colonizer up, I'm going to yoke that nigga up, no problem. But with Neytiri, it's up there every time.
Mm-hmm.
Up there, stuck there. Every time I see him. It's like genuine disdain and hate. And to put it in simple terms, Neytiri wants her get back. That's just what it is. Wants her get back. Every time. She killed him. And it's still beef. It's still beef. She literally killed him in the first movie, and it's still beef. He says, "Is that Miss Scully?" And she says, "I'll kill you as many times as I have to." That level of like disdain and rage and pain that's only compounded throughout the movie for further events that we'll get to, bro.
with the introduction of all the children, like we have Sigourney Weaver's like Jesus reincarnation birth.
Yeah.
We have their genuine children that they had together. They're setting the seeds up that in these future movies, it's going to be huge for them. Like, it's not just going to be the Jake Sully super franchise. It's going to be the Sully family. What was the motto? Sully stick together or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
they pretty much, they're setting it in stone. It's almost like a creed, like a family crest. Like Navi, I don't even know if they have that kind of like family specific within the Navi, if they see their whole tribe as like one super family, but they're
It's a
like
good question.
a sub family within like a super tribe.
That's actually a really good question too, is like, if the way that he's raising them is like kind of more humanistic, for like, I don't know if that's a word, it is today, if it's more like humanistic more so than like how the rest of the, because I think she even says, this is a family, not a squad. And I think you could perceive that as like he's being too harsh on them, because I think that's all. But you could also see it as like you're raising them very differently from the way that I was raised.
All the children get into so much shit in this movie just to protect the family, like the Sullys not giving up on each other. They're fighting the other tribes, like little squabbles, like a middle school, high school squabble or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you get into like they're saving the whale at one point, and it's like, well, if the youngest brother's going, who's getting in shit all throughout this movie, we all got to go. We all got to go, because if he's going, Sully's don't leave Sully's behind, even though he's getting in some shit. I guess that means we're getting in some shit, because we can't just let him go get in some shit by himself. So I love that idea that Jake is like, yeah, we fuck with everybody here. We got, the Navi, Alway, all that stuff is great. But the Sullys, we're a fortress. He says his family is a fortress. There's like a weird spiritual thing where, like, if someone dies, they're like, all right, just give the body to Alway. Like, they're in a better place, still with us in a way. Almost like a sense of comfort. Like, we can be sad, but it's not that big of a deal. Whereas Jake and Neytiri are like, fuck all that. We about to kill everybody.
It's a much more personal loss, as opposed to everybody has like a collective mourning. So I think like one of the biggest attributing factors in my theory on like what the themes of the third and fourth movie may be is Neytiri's relationship with Spider there at the end, where it comes down to Captain Colonizer has Kiri, with a blade to her neck, and Neytiri shows up with Spider in the same position, and it becomes an exchange of sorts. We're talking about a group of people who seem to prioritize the significance of life and its meaning and how tragic it is when it has to come to an end in an unnecessary way. We've only seen that attitude held towards other things on Pandora, whereas Natiri was more than willing, in my opinion, to kill Spider. Now, before I continue, is fuck Spider. Snitched, ratted, folded. You running around here with blue paint, pretending to be one of them, but you folded under a little torture. Yeah, right. To me, that is like one of the most important parts of the movie where she is so willing to kill him and so unwilling to acknowledge him in any positive light. It isn't mean to him prior to that, but doesn't seem to acknowledge him directly. Seems to question his kind of being there, kind of like he's not hurting anything, but she definitely didn't see him as one of them. Yet his children are so easily attached to him.
The one character that I was left and right about him at first is Jake's youngest son. He seemed very much like a fuck up, but like as the movie goes on, he seems to like be more open to new ideas and to new suggestions. To whereas like seeing him with the whale, for example, how we were talking about, everyone was saying that it was like this thing that you're not supposed to mess with, and he's being very understanding. I can see like the seeds being planted for him to be a better leader for this new Pandora, not compared to like the old one in the ritual ways and the, you know, doing everything the same, but like him being a half breed and then having a brother like Spider who is 100% a human, and then having the animal that he bonds with being an outcast, and him feeling like an outcast, and him feeling like the weaker son, and to now to be the oldest son losing his brother and having that on his shoulders too. You could see that he could, you know, rise to a leader that could handle a new Pandora, and even a general that comes back with, you know, how we're talking about earlier, maybe he comes back with a different tribe or something, like whatever there is to face. I feel like if anybody's more equipped to handle it, or someone that can be more leading in times like that, would be this son who's growing up in this new age and this new Pandora.
But to get into the favorite parts of this movie, I'm telling you, MVP of the movie is the whale. My favorite part is when he jumps out of the water, destroys the ship. I mean, he's wiping people out on top. He's just floundering on top of there, by the way. But also, they try to shoot the harpoon in him. He said, "Nope, Captain America's shield off the head."
That shit was cold.
He was like, "You thought you had me, dog?"
He was finessing him,
and
bro.
Then he hit a weave later. Where dude thought he had me like weave.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I said weave out loud. Person beside me was like, "What?" Because I was like, "Weave, weave."
He grabs after the weave. He grabs the rope, ties the ship up, and crushes it, and slices that bastard's arm off. I was like, the whale is so fucking pimp in this movie.
I fucking hated the hunter, dude. By the way, so satisfying to see him get. He fucking sucked. Like he sucked in a. Like, bro, you're just annoying. I love when Colonel explains to Jake, he was like, "I will not stop until all of your family is dead." And Jake said, "Well, I guess we better get to it then." Because, oh, dude, I was like, I'm pretty sure I fucking elbowed somebody because I was like, because we can't forget, above all else, Jake Sully got that fucking dog in him, dog. That's what it comes down to. Got that fucking dog in him. You do an x-ray of his Navi ass body, dog, all on the inside.
My favorite part is kind of going on what Dallas was saying a second ago, was Natiri getting on when she steps on the rig. Because when she steps on the rig, bro, she starts smacking. Like you can really see like that instinct, that like motherly instinct, that rage, that built up aggression that's been going on these whole fucking 2 movies for this one person. I thought, I was really expecting, like, I know it's a Jake show, but I'm wanting the Natiri in Captain Colonizer 1. That's what whenever she starts smacking, I was like, oh, she's coming for him. And then, you know, obviously Jake's get it and it's fine, but that's why he survived. She would have put an arrow through this nigga, bro.
To get into scoring this thing, one, every movie I've reviewed in this entire year just went down a level. Go watch any review we got. It's reduced a letter grade. That's how good this movie is.
Goddamn.
I am giving this movie a 10 out of 10. Okay. 10 out of 10. I think it's personally perfect movie. Is it long? Yes. I didn't give a fuck. I want it to be longer. I want it to be 4 hours long. Is there a lot of characters and a lot of shit going on? Sometimes you're with Jake for 20 minutes. You're with the kids for 20 minutes. There's a lot of stuff. Yes. Don't care. Loved every single second of it. The action was great. The creativity and story was out of this world. I cannot wait to see where all the seeds have been planted and where they blossom. I think this is going to be one of the greatest franchises of all time. And I think this movie's so good, it makes the first one better.
I'm going to give it a 10 as well, just purely based on the fact that I can't think of anything that I dislike. I can't even think of anything I would have done differently. There's not a creative decision in the movie that I think was bad. I think it expands upon the first movie. You know, I think you could argue that maybe the scale is a bit smaller, but thematically, emotionally, it's a much more intimate and larger story. While the focus on family and the children was something I was not expecting. I thought it was going to be Jake Sully in his bag for the entire time. But the fact that it was more of a focus on that, I think, is amazing and makes me even more excited. There's not a character that they introduced in this movie that had significant screen time that I'm not emotionally invested in.
It's a 10, man. I feel like all in all, the story's about protecting family, but even watching it, knowing that it still feels fresh. It doesn't feel like anything else. It feels like its own thing, and it's like a direct continuation of the first movie, like the visuals, the story, the world building, and not like the world building as in Pandora, but the fact that there are other tribes and they can do other things. It leaves the idea of how big is Pandora, and then also having going deep into his like family, and it's not just about Jake, which would be fair. If this second movie was more so about Jake than anybody, that would be fine. I wouldn't have went into this movie thinking that his kids would have such a big interaction with everything.
That's 10 out of 10 across the board. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's the first perfect movie here at the Dork Side. So,
Yeah.
and it's totally deserving. Totally deserving. I cannot stress enough. You need to see it in theaters while you can. Even though they've re-released the original Avatar like 20 fucking times in theaters, you don't want to accidentally not catch this one in theaters. If you got kids, it's worth getting a babysitter. You don't have to see it in 3D. Save some money. You have to go see this. We would love to know your favorite parts of Avatar: The Way of Water. Did you love this movie? Did you hate it? We'd love to discuss it in the comments down below with you. And we want to give a special shout out to the homies over at the Patreon. We appreciate you guys supporting the channel. And if you want to watch our reaction to the first Avatar movie, it's right here on the screen. And if you want to watch the full reaction and commentary, it is on the Patreon. So we appreciate you guys. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.